Right, so the days are too hot and the nights are too owly, which is part of why I have been really struggling with motivation to get these done recently. And so we haven't had much rain. I've been very erratic with the uploading, and I'm going to be doing 3 plantings tonight to try and catch up a little bit. So first up, we've got a replacement planting. This is where a Phoenix reclinata has actually died. This is one of the 3 that went in all at once, which all got sunburned and then all started to come back. But this one has finally succumbed to termites and it's just toast. So I've dug a nice big pit here and we're going to be planting a tree that often grows in similar habitats, but has thus far this year proved much more resilient for planting in open spaces for me. So this is Kigelia africana, the sausage tree, which produces a fruit which is used quite medicinally. It does also have a few other uses and some sort of traditional uses that wouldn't quite fall under medicine, but it's a very useful little tree. We're going to be adding another Dracaena. This is actually one that fell down nearby. Second up tonight, if there's one lesson I have learned so far this year with these plantings, it is that when people say plant in full sun, they don't mean it here, because a lot of trees, the reason they are trees is not that they start in full bright open sunlight. Then there will be no reason to grow up except to use the trunk to store water or get away from browsers. Generally speaking, most trees don't need to go up except that they start in more shade than they want to finish in, and so they're often much more tender when they're small than when they're mature. And you can get around this to a degree by buying larger plants from nurseries, but they're more expensive. So what I would prefer to do, if possible, is plant smaller trees somewhere where they will have shade to begin with and can get into the sun. And this champaca can get very large. This is a type of magnolia. This is actually the second plant that's going in. The first plant going in is a shrub whose name I've forgotten, but that will be going up on screen. The champaca is a magnolia which can get very large indeed. It can be used for timber. It can also be coppice, so it can be kept small much more readily than some of the more pruning sensitive magnolias. But when I planted one in sun previously, it got completely toasted when I went away, whereas one that was in shade, although it suffered from dehydration when I was away, it has come back. And this is going right on the eastern side of a hedge, where to begin with it won't get any afternoon sun, but once it's more than about 1.5 meters tall, it'll start to get some afternoon sun, and once it gets high enough to break through the canopy above the hedge, it'll get some pretty solid sun if I let it get there. Other than the shrub whose name I've forgotten, it's not getting companion plants because there is a Dracaena fragrans right next to it that went in a while back, and there is also plenty of Euphorbia milli up and down here, which will act as a toxic barrier and should spread out around us because it is along one of the drip lines, so it will get water even if I go away. Finally tonight, another idea I have come across over this year is that if you do have a truly open space, go with a truly succulent tree to close it and then start planting your other trees, because a lot of these succulent trees will stay small. This is one of the examples of that. This is Portulacaria afra. It can get to 4 or 5 meters tall, but usually it will be smaller than that, and it will take some pruning to get to that height. And it's very, very tolerant once established. This one is pre-rooted, which should make it a little bit hardier than if I put it in cuttings. Usually when I plant it as a companion plant, I used it as a cutting. I have planted one already as a tree, and I think that was one I had already rooted. But this is a very, very hardy Southern African tree. It should be very good in this relatively open space at closing it a little bit off, spreading out a bit, and creating a little bit more protection from wind and sun, so I can come in with more sensitive trees at a later date. The only companion plant it's going to be getting is the Sansevieria parva that was in the pot with it, which were some pieces that had broken when I was transplanting them for another companion plant, so I just shoved them in this pot. And because they are a very wonderful little plant, they have rooted. There are mole rats in this area, and most of the Sansevierias are very sensitive to that, but they do seem to get on all right with the parva because it tends to have very long shoots between stems, which means that even when they shoot through the base of one, there's enough left of that long root to send up more. And that should be everything for tonight, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow because I will be planting something different. I am not sure what yet, but we'll see.